Welcome back. We're glad to see our panelists, although we're back in our remote locations. I'm in a remote location because I've come into close contact with someone who's tested positive in the last 48 hours in my household. Also with us, PBS NewsHour Chief Correspondent Amna Nawaz. Phil Rucker is the senior Washington correspondent for the Washington Post. Former Democratic Congresswoman Donna Edwards, and John Podhoretz, the editor of Commentary. Well, we got a lot to get into here, and Amna, I'm going to just begin with you. It already was arguably a deflating political end for the Biden administration, and an exclamation point apparently this morning with Joe Manchin saying he's done with Build Back Better. And now we have Omicron. And when you think about the first 6 weeks of 2022, I don't know how the Biden administration focuses on anything else.
You're absolutely right, Chuck. I mean, this latest news from Senator Manchin, this latest statement, is a massive blow. I mean, we know the president wanted Build Back Better done as quickly as possible. We know the Senate Democrats have been saying we wanted to get done by Christmas. But look, even if you just look in the last few days, none of those sort of self-imposed deadlines really made any kind of a difference to Senator Manchin. Not the holiday deadline, not the imminent expiration of the child tax credit, even though experts say it could push some 10 million children, disproportionately Black and Latino and Native children, back into poverty. And Senator Manchin's concerns, to be clear about this, have been consistent over time. It's the size of the package, it's inflation, which has only gotten worse. And the president has been clear. They wanted negotiations to continue. Even as recently as last night, White House officials were saying this is a president who knows how to get big historic pieces of legislation through, even with two of the narrowest majorities in the House and Senate. But this latest from Senator Manchin is a massive blow. It's really hard to see a path forward for this now.
Hey, Donna Edwards, how big of a blow is this to the Democratic base?
Well, I think it's a big blow, frankly. I mean, there's no other way to put it. This was a major, central piece of the president's agenda. It is something that he campaigned on, all of the elements of Build Back Better, and it was his priority. And now we know that Senator Manchin, one senator, is going to deny the president of the United States his major policy priority. And so I don't know where it goes from here. I know that there are probably House progressives right now who are saying to themselves, that's why we wanted to tie the bipartisan infrastructure plan to Build Back Better, because we were afraid all along that Senator Manchin would back away from this. And so there's probably a lot of regret going on, and there are promises that will not be kept to the American people.
John Podhoretz?
I don't know how Joe Manchin could have made it any clearer beginning in March of this year that he was not going to support this bill. He said, $1.5 trillion, that's what I'm in for. Then the bill comes out, it's $6 trillion, it's $3.5 trillion, now it's either $2 trillion, $2.2 trillion, $1.75 trillion. He told Chuck Schumer, my number is $1.5 trillion. He wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal saying, my number is $1.5 trillion. That is Joe Manchin. That has been Joe Manchin all year. It is malpractice for the political malpractice on the part of the Biden administration that they did not take him at his word. They do not have a big majority. They have a 50-50 Senate. He said, if you go this way, I'm a no. And they kept saying, don't say you're a no. Let's negotiate. Let's negotiate. Let's negotiate. They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. They had victory on the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and they held it until way later than they could have had it and then touted it. And here they are right now with a huge loss at the end of the year. This is very bad politics. And the idea the idea that what this demonstrates is that Biden has some kind of political talent for getting big bills through, that has now been exposed as a sham and a delusion. Like, this is a terrible political outcome, one of the worst I think we've seen for a first-year president ever.
You know, Phil Rucker, I have to say the head scratcher for me is this idea they chose to basically negotiate with everybody else first and hope there would be the pressure campaign would work. I never understood it at the time, and now obviously it looks like a total strategic miscalculation.
Yeah, Chuck, and we should keep in mind the backdrop here. The pressure campaign doesn't work if the American people are not behind the president. And the polling for the last several months has indicated a declining popularity for President Biden. You know, Gallup had numbers recently showing he is nearly as polarizing as President Trump was during his presidency, with a huge gap in approval between registered Republicans and registered Democrats. And that's the data that somebody like Senator Manchin is looking at when he's thinking about whether he's going to put his neck on the line, you know, representing a conservative state like West Virginia to get behind this president's agenda. And so Biden was unable to really sell these policy proposals out with the American people.
Look, I want to bring up something President Biden spoke at South Carolina State, gave the commencement, and he talked voting rights. Take a listen to it.
Maybe most important of all, we have to protect that sacred right to vote, for God's sake. And folks, you know, as John Lewis said, it is the only, without the right to vote, there is no democracy.
You know, Amna, in hindsight now, the decision, he was pretty strong on voting rights on Friday. He gave a strong speech in July, and in between he focused on Build Back Better. You know, he was elected arguably for two reasons: to deal with COVID and to deal with Donald Trump. And the not prioritizing voting rights versus the way they did Build Back Better obviously looks like a strategic mistake here. Can they revive this at all in 22 before the elections?
Well, I think you're starting to see some early signs of that already, right? You see the president there talking strongly about voting rights, which White House officials will say he has said from the very beginning is a priority. We know the vice president has been leading those efforts. But you've seen what happens with the bills when it comes to lawmakers. They have now Democrats have twice tried to move forward and have been stopped by Republicans when it comes to expanding voting rights or codifying them at the federal level. And look, you have to look back over the last year. The White House has done what they can from an executive position, right? They've directed federal agencies to do what they can to expand access. The Department of Justice has ramped up, I think, doubling the staffing of their voting enforcement agencies and are already fighting some of those states where they believe those rights are being challenged. Democrats agree there's a fundamental existential sort of issue here when it comes to voting access in the face of a spate of Republican state legislatures passing restrictions and making it harder for people to vote. And now we know that Senate Democrats are starting to prioritize it again. We've learned about this meeting that they held on Friday, trying to talk about what sort of amendments, carve-outs, changes could they make to a filibuster rule to try to get 50 votes. I'm told by a source in the meeting all options are on the table, that Schumer's been working on this for months, and that they do see it as a priority going into the new year.
Well, between now and the State of the Union. Well, hang on, John. I gotta get going here. Sorry, buddy.
Sorry.
Between now and the State of the Union, it's going to be interesting to see what do they prioritize in the wake of what is going to be an Omicron surge. How much is it voting rights? How much is it the child tax credit? What is it they're going to try to accomplish before the election season starts? That's an unknown. When we come back, our annual tribute to those we lost in the past year.
Thank you. And instead of goodbye, how about so long?
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.